Senate in the first regular session of the 20th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Camille Villar will lead the chamber in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we praise and glorify you today for your grace and enduring love for our country. Thank you for the resilience you have blessed us with. Even in the face of challenges, you see your hand of protection over our people. Lord, continue to guide us, grant us your wisdom, and teach us to serve selflessly, always putting the needs of our country above our own. As your word in James chapter 1, verse 5 declares, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Today, we humbly ask for that wisdom. May it lead our thoughts, shape our words, and direct our actions as we deliberate on laws and policies that will define the future of our beloved country. We thank you for the privilege of public service, for the opportunity to serve our kababayans and to be instruments of change for their well-being. Remind us always that it is not a privilege for personal gain, but a sacred calling to uplift the lives of others. May we use this responsibility to bring comfort, hope, and lasting progress to our people. We pray for peace and unity in our land so that we may serve our country with one voice, compassion, and dedication. We also lift up to you our kababayans here and abroad. Keep them safe, strengthen their faith, and bless their families. Lord, we once again thank you for your endless love and grace. We entrust our country and our future in your mighty hands. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Aquino, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Hontiveros, Senator Lacson, Senator Lapid, Senator Ligarda, Senator Marcoleta, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Tulfo Erwin, Senator Tulfo Rafi, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Camille, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Subiri. The Senate President is present.
With 19 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before we start the day, I'd just like to greet all our lady senators. A happy Valentine's Day, Mr. President. Advance happy Valentine's. And maybe to add to the prayer of Senator Camille Villar, she could have said, Lord, please help Senator Sherwin Gatchalian find a date for Valentine's. Kidding aside, Mr. President, we'd like to recognize the guests in the gallery, particularly the JIL Women's Volleyball Team, champions of the Bulacan University Collegiate Athletics Association, together with Coach H. Ailion and Ma'am Cheryl Jose. We have also with us guests of Senator Bamakino and Senator Pangilinan, local government officials from the province of Catanduanes led by Governor Patrick Azanza, also barangay officials from Milaor, Camarines Sur, together with Mayor Anthony Reyes and Father Roger Barbecho, Mayor J. Vincent Capistrano of Salay, Misamis Oriental, and Vice Mayor Popoy Pangadupon of Marawi City. Also, Mr. President, we have with us guests of Senator Alan Cayetano. SK officials from the city of Taguig are here with us as well, Mr. President.
Yes, I think we also have Mayor Sarmiento and Councilor Nuco of Mamay High, Laguna. So we welcome all our guests to the Senate this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I
Majority
believe
Leader.
the good Senate President would like to prevail of the privilege hour. Would you like it done now, Mr. President? I can ask for suspension so that Senator Lacson could
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, session,
if
Mr.
you
President,
will.
may be suspended for me.
Session suspended.
Before we recognize our distinguished Senate President, would like to also recognize an additional guest of Senator Aquino. Vice Mayor Julio Samson of North Sagaray, Bulacan is also with us, Mr. President. Mr. President, may we recognize our distinguished Senate President Vicente Soto III, to avail of the privilege hour, Mr. President.
The Senate President, Senator Vicente Soto III, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my esteemed colleagues. Thank you for allowing me, before the reference of business, to be recognized for this. The first time I delivered a privilege speech in the Senate was August of 1992. And the topic, more or less, is connected to my topic today, which is my first privilege speech in the 20th Congress. I rise today, Mr. President, to once again convey and place on record my history on the fight against drug abuse and illegal drugs. I will discuss it in three parts, Mr. President. Everybody agrees that when it comes to the eradication of prohibited drugs and drug abuse in our country, but the argument lies in the manner and method to combat this pervasive menace to the society. Let me begin with the past, Mr. President. As I had said in three parts, the past, the present, and the future. In the past, 1988, I was elected Vice Mayor of Quezon City. I immediately established the Quezon City Anti-Drug Abuse Advisory Council. The program was recognized for reducing the drug problem in Quezon City from a high level of 54% in the entire Metro Manila down to 9%, significantly lower, in very lower levels that the World Health Organization, the WHO, later recognized it as a model council. This is one of the reasons why I ran for the Senate in 1992, to author laws against illegal drugs and drug abuse. During that time, Mr. President, shabu was a regulated drug, for the information of the Gen Zs and the millennials. In 2002, I principally authored Republic Act 9165, or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act, which was enacted into law that year. It emphasizes rehabilitation for drug dependents, both voluntary and compulsory, and mandates drug education programs in schools and communities. Now, as a staunch and long-standing advocate against illegal drugs, I always convey that this battle must be holistic. As a matter of fact, it is a war. There must be four major concerns and success in the four major concerns. And what are these? Enforcement, prosecution, prevention, and rehabilitation. Enforcement, kahit ubusin mo, Mr. President, ang lahat ng pusher sa Pilipinas, lipulin mo, ilagay mo sa isang island, bombahin mo yung island. Kumuha ka naman, ipunin mo lahat ng droga sa buong Pilipinas. Cocaine, shabu, marijuana, designer drugs, heroin, lahat na. Pag sama-samahin mo sa isang lugar, sunugin mo lahat. You will not be able to eradicate it. Why? because there are drug dependents. Hanggang may drug dependent, they will find substances to abuse. May contact cement, may Novain, may cough syrup. Yung napatay na professor sa UP, 17 stab wounds. Cough syrup high. Yung tao nung mahuli namin. And then, prevention. Prevention, Mr. President, unfortunately, is not integrated in the DepEd curriculum. While it should be a drug abuse resistance education program that should be incorporated in this, in the Department of Education. Great. They will already know by that time, before they reach first year high school, that illegal drugs will be bad for them. Drug dependency will be bad for their family, for their future, for their health. And then rehabilitation, Mr. President. Rehabilitation should be lodged in the Department of Health. It is, as a matter of fact, lodged in the Department of Health based on the law that I have authored, Republic Act 9165. But we asked the DOH, are you doing it? Are you accrediting all the rehabilitation centers in the Philippines? Ang problema, may pinapasok sa rehabilitation center, Mr. President. After 6 months lalabas, pag after another 1 or 2 months, balik uli. Why? Because the profiling is wrong. Because the program being used is wrong. Hindi ho ganun kadali mag-rehab. We must find the profile, we must define the profile of the drug dependent. Ano man bagay sa kanyang rehabilitation program? Iba-iba po yan. Merong faith-based, merong 12 steps Minnesota model, merong multidisciplinary, merong therapeutic community which is being done in Bikutan and it's very successful. At yung eclectic. So, Mr. President, hindi po ganun kadali yun. So, again, why am I saying all this? Because I want to go into the present. Eto ngayon, pinanggit ko yung prosecution. As I go into the present, I mention now, I've read an article in the Inquirer entitled, "The Drug War Bows to Law," last January 6, 2026. It mentioned that for the period of January to May 2025, there are 284 drug-related acquittals from the Court of Appeals. January, February, March, April, May. 5 buwan lang, Mr. President. 284 drug-related acquittals from the Court of Appeals. This exceeded the whole 2018 acquittal from the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals, which recorded 257 drug-related acquittals. In 2019, the Appellate Court recorded 944 acquittals. As mentioned in the article, this reveals a system inundated with cases, poorly built, that findings of guilt cannot stand. Appellate justices point to repeated violations of the chain of custody rule under Republic Act 9165. We somehow amended already Section 21 a few years ago because also in the law we incorporated there that it should be reviewed every 10 years. Now, Mr. President, as indicated in the budget notes of the Supreme Court for fiscal year 2026, the court posted a below-target disposition rate of 27%. Meanwhile, backlogs on pending cases ranging from 3 to 6 years increased to 87.7% for 2024. In the 2024 Judiciary Annual Report, there are 2,930 pending criminal cases in drugs courts in the e-court system. Mr. President, in the data from the Dangerous Drugs Board, which I was a chairman before, from July 2022 to December 2025, there were 169,534 cases filed for dangerous drugs seized with a total value of 100 billion pesos. 4,296 of these cases were dismissed. Upon interview with several court personnel in Manila, Mr. President, they've noticed that the information in cases filed seems to have templates. Parang pare-pareho. And there were instances that there is duplication in evidence used in different cases. So these weak cases may be results of poor coordination between the police and the prosecution. Nakakalungkot, Mr. President, but let me go back again to the past pagdating dito sa issue na to. When I established the Quezon City Anti-Drug Abuse Council, we had these 4 primary concerns which I studied and learned from abroad. The chief city prosecutor then, Pepe Erestain, assigned to me 12 assistant city prosecutors only to prosecute drug cases in Quezon City. And together with that, the head of NARCOM then, one of your batchmates, Mr. President, assigned to me a NARCOM contingent to handle enforcement. Ang problema, Mr. President, after a few months, sunod-sunod ang dismissal. Kaya ako binabalikan yung kwento ngayon eh. Sunod-sunod ang dismissal. Kinausap ko ngayon yung NARCOM at ang chief of police namin noon, si Colonel Rodolfo Garcia. Sabi ko, ano ba nangyayari? Bakit ba? And then I also talked to the prosecutors, the 12 prosecutors, city prosecutors headed by Fiscal Tomas. Sabi sa akin, Mr. Vice Mayor, hindi marunong mag-file ng kaso yung mga pulis mo. Kaya hirap na hirap kami. Nadi-dismiss. Yun ang sagot. Nung tanungin ko yung mga pulis at yung NARCOM agents, sabi ko, hindi raw kayo marunong mag-file ng kaso. Ang sagot po sa akin, hindi ho, nalalagyan yung mga prosecutor mo. Ba, hindi ko alam kung sino paniniwala sa kanila, Mr. President. But again, I recall all this after I've seen all these dismissals in the different courts. Well, here's the beef, Mr. President. In another inquiry in Parañaque, they say that almost 75 to 85% of drug cases are dismissed because of the non-observance of the dual witness required by law. Ito na, according to enforcers, it's a challenge to have buy-bust or entrapment operations due to lack of availability of prosecutors during the buy-bust, media, or elected officials at the time or of immediately following. Yan ang sinasabi, as required by law. Indeed, yes, we placed that in the law then. It was an amendment proposed by Senator Nene Pimentel, I distinctly recall. In the case of People versus Nisperos, even 30 minutes after the enforcement is no longer considered as immediately following, thus will violate the procedure required by law. So I checked with the other drug laws in our neighboring countries, Mr. President, for 2024 to 2025. Singapore remains a global leader in strict enforcement and with 95% conviction, 95% conviction rate for drug offenders. Among our neighbors, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Thailand, South Korea, Malaysia, India, and Taiwan, we are the only country with a statutory chain of custody rule. Other countries observe it, but as part of proof only and not by law. They have high evidentiary expectations, but there is flexibility on how the chain is proven. Yes, being the author, so sabihin nyo, you're to blame. Ba't nilagay nyo yan? Hindi po. Times are to blame. Nakaka-imbento nakakapalusot And that is the reason that Congress should be dynamic. That is the reason that we have to come up with new laws or upgrade or amend our laws, Mr. President. So indeed, it is high time that we, I now go to part 3, the future, Mr. President. It is high time we amend again Section 21 of Republic Act 9165. Instead of mandating that witnesses must be elected officials, representative of DOJ or media in every organization, we can mandate that the two-witness rule be ordinary citizens living in the area or body-worn cameras in lieu of witnesses. There is also a need, Mr. President, to streamline the marking requirements, especially during in flagrante delicto arrests. So, Mr. President, it's about time also for the passage of the creation of the Presidential Drug Enforcement Authority. I believe it is essential at this point in our history in time. This agency will oversee and aid in the proper filing of drug cases, and if possible, to assign lawyers in every precinct to assist in the strict enforcement of the law. Hindi po military unit dapat ang PIDEA. It should be overseeing and monitoring all the drug enforcement units, anti-drug enforcement units. So this PIDEA, which I am proposing, aims to unify enforcement, prosecution, prevention, and rehabilitation under one roof to ensure a holistic and effective approach. Mr. President, the scale of justice must be balanced. The effectivity of enforcement and prosecution must be equally accorded with due process to protect the citizens from abuse of authority. It is high time for a holistic reform in the whole of government approach to eradicate illegal drugs and drug abuse. So, Mr. President, that concludes my history in my fight against drug abuse and illegal drugs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senate President Soto. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I believe that our distinguished Senator, Senator Macoleta, would like to interpolate the good Senate President, if he may wish so.
Yeah, Senator Marcoleta is recognized to
Maraming
interpolate.
salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. Sponsor, kung sana po ay makakapagtanong po ng ilang bagay sa inyo pong privilege speech na binitawan sa hapong ito.
Certainly, Mr. President, with pleasure.
Mr. President, unang-una po ay pinasasalamatan ko ang ating, Senate President sa paglalahad niya ng kanyang makulay na kasaysayan kung paano po pinasimulan ang kanyang inisyatibo para makatulong po sa pagsugpo ng droga sa ating bansa. Napaka-importante po talaga na ito po ay diretsahang mabaka po ng ating pamahalaan para sa ganun ito po ay mapuksa sa lalong madaling panahon. Ngunit kagaya po ng paghahalimbawa na ginawa ng ating Senate President, para pong maski po siya'y nalulungkot sapagkat nung siya po ay nagsimula niyan, siya po ay Vice Mayor po ng Quezon City. Pwede po bang maitanong, Mr. President, kung anong taon po yun?
1988, Your Honor,
Ngayon
January 1988 were the elections. I was sworn in as vice mayor, if I recall it right, February 2 of 1988.
Ngayon po, Mr. President, tayo po ay 2026 na at kayo po ay Senate President na po. Mga ilang taon po yung pagitan mula nung kayo'y maging Vice Mayor at ngayon po ay isa ng Pangulo ng ating Senado.
37 years, if my mathematics is still working, Mr. President.
So, Ginoong Pangulo, sa halos 40 taong pakikipagbaka natin sa droga, na ngayon ay nalaman nating isa pa lang ating gagalanggalang na Senate President ang nagpasimula nito. Ngunit sa kanya pong paglalahad ay may halo pong kalungkutan dahil sa kanya pong paglalarawan kanina, kahit na po hulihin natin lahat ang mga puser at ang mga gumagamit nito, at kahit sakasakali na meron po tayong magagawang kaparaanan na sila ay ilagay lahat sa isang isla. At meron po tayong karapatan at kakayahan na pasabugin ang isla na yon. Siguro po iniisip po ng ating Pangulo, Mr. President, na sa kanya pong frustration talagang, kumbisan nga po, mahalos maiisip nyo na po yun eh. Dahil siguro sa kagustuhan niyang mapuksa ka agad, bobombahin na lang niya. Pagalimbawa po natin, Mr. President, nakahanap siya ng isang napakabagsik na bomba. Talaga pong walang natirang isamang kaluluwa. Namatay po lahat, Mr. President. Pero sabi niya, hindi pa rin po sapat yun eh. Hanggat meron tayong lilitaw ng mga kababayan, sabi po niya, na dependent sa droga, mananatili pong magkakaroon tayo ng problema. Tama po ba yung aking pagkakarinig, Mr. President?
Tama po yun. Bagamat pagdating po dun sa issue ng human rights, yung akin po ay theoretical lang, na kapag kahit ubusin mo lahat ng puser sa Pilipinas, in a way, kung ika ngay may mong pasabugin sa isang lugar at mawala sila lahat, theoretical lang naman yun.
Alam ko po yun, Mr.
Ika nga ganun pa rin, magkakaroon pa rin ng hahanap pa rin po sila kung meron kang drug dependent. Kaya nga ho, ang totoo po niyan, kapag nasawata natin ang drug dependency, ang bigat nga, mas mabigat sa akin yung prevention and rehabilitation kaysa sa enforcement and prosecution kung tutuusin. Sapagkat kapag napigil mo lahat ang drug dependent sa Pilipinas, yung mga bagong 13 years old hindi na magdodroga at yung mga dating drug dependent na inahirehab mo, wala nang bibili. Mr. President, I have said this before, the day we stop buying is the day they stop selling. Wala na magbebenta, Mr. President, dahil walang bibili. Like, for example, in this case, dito sa ating ngayon, maglagay ka na isang tambak na cocaine dyan. Kung walang drug dependent dito, walang hihipo nun. Basura yun, Mr. President. That is what I mean. Thank you.
Salamat po sa inyong pagpapaliwanag. Yun din po ang pagkakaintindi ko, Mr. President. Kahit na theoretically magagawa po natin yun, ay talaga po palang mahihirapan din tayo. Ito po paglararawan na lang na kaya nating gawin. Kunwari, totoong lahat na nagawa po natin yun. Mananatili pong maharap po tayo sa problema dahil may babangon po pang mga iba pang mga drug dependents na ang pinagmumulan po nito ay marami pong mga problema sa buhay. Iba't iba pong kalagayan sa buhay. Halimbawa po, Mr. President, sa napakahirap pong kalagayan ng napakarami nating mamamayan ngayon, yung kanilang pong pagkain lang, Mr. President. Ngayon po ay halos na doble na po ang presyo ng mga bilihin ngayon. Isama po nyo yung gamot, yung lahat po ng pangangailangan para mabuhay ka lang ng disente. Kaya kung minsan po nagagawa na ng mga tao para malimutan lang ang problema na kanilang kinakaharap sa araw-araw. Lalo pa nga, isama mo po ang kanilang mga anak. Kaya po sila nakakahanap ng paraan para malimutan siguro yung problema. So, kung hindi po natin maayos ang problema nating pang-ekonomiko, socio-economic problems, yan po talaga ang kausa. Yan po yung pinagmumulan ng problema kung bakit lumalala at lalong nagiging mahirap para bakahin natin ang problema ng droga. Sa makatwid, Mr. President, hindi lamang po yung actual na paghuli sa mga gumagamit ng droga, i-reinforce natin ang mga batas, i-prosecute natin, i-rehabilitate. Kinakailangan po nating puntahan yung pinagmumulan muna ng problema kung bakit nagkakaroon ng mga taong sapilitang gumagamit ng droga. Sa makatwid, lalong mas malaki po yung problema ang kinakaharap natin. Hanggat hindi po natin na isasaayos ang napakaraming problemang bumabalot sa ating bansa, mananatili po na magkakaroon at lalo pa pong magkakaroon at dadami pa ang mga taong maghahanap ng pansamantalang pagtatakip ng kanilang problema. Yan nga ay sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng droga. Tama po ba ang aking assumption, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, maraming salamat po. Maganda yung napunto ninyo sapagkat you are absolutely right. But hayaan niyo pong dagdagan ko. Ano? At hindi lang yung ikang escape ang pinag-uusapan dito. As a matter of fact, thank you for reminding me because if I am asked, may mga drug dependent hanggang ngayon, drug dependent pa rin kahit ubos na droga. Ano ba problema? Ayan ang tatanong. Ano ba ang pinagsisimulan niyan? Mr. President, I have used an acronym, PEACE, P-E-A-C-E, to describe it. And that encompasses and includes what the distinguished gentleman from Tarlac said, Senator Marcoleta. Tama po yun. Because P stands for peer pressure. Yan po isa sa mga dahilan. Sa eskwela, sa barkadahan, naku, pag hindi ka sumubok, ganito. Isa po yun. Yung E sa peace stands for escape. Yun mismo yung sinasabi ninyo. At yun ang isa sa mga dahilan. Parang escape po yan. Akala nila, makakatakas sila sa problema nila, makakatakas sila sa kahirapan nila, sa pamamagitan nito. Mali po. Lalong nadodoble ang problema nila. Yung A naman sa peace stands for availability. Napakalaki hong negosyo nito. Ito po, bilyon-bilyones na dolyares na negosyo ito. That's why these people, these drug lords, these drug pushers, especially high-level drug traffickers, will make it available in your streets, in your homes, in your schools, everywhere. They will make it available. At kukumbinsin kayo na sububok at malulung dito sapagkat negosyo po ito. It's a $1 trillion industry in the world. Yun naman pong C sa peace is curiosity. At yun ang pwede nating iwasan doon sa sinasabi kong prevention sa Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program ng mga kabataan. Curiosity po ang simula nung iba. At yun namang E sa peace is emptiness. Kapag walang pagmamahal, pag walang Panginoon sa puso mo, Panginoon, pag walang ang Diyos sa puso mo, iyon na tinatawag nga na emptiness, malamang malulung ka sa ipinagbabawal na gamot. Yun po ang isa sa mga binabanggit ko lagi. Kaya po, salamat at nabanggit nyo yung mga dahilan na yan. At yan hindi madaling harapin, hindi madaling solusyonan. As a matter of fact, it has to be an ongoing fight. It is a war. And I always say, Mr. President, in this war, the best fighting unit against illegal drugs is the family. Kaya po, paulit-ulit ko pong sinasabi po yan. Salamat po.
Salamat din po sa karagdagang paliwanag, Mr. President. Talagang yung P, pressure po talaga. Pressurado siya araw-araw. Walang makain ng anak niya. Walang magamit sa napakarami pong pangangailangan sa buhay. Litong-lito po siya. Talagang pressure po yun. Yung E, Ano na po yung A, Mr. President?
Escape.
Escape. Akala po niya, makakaiwas siya. Akala po niya, magagawa niya ng paraan, maiwasan niya na lang sapagkat hindi po niya mapunan ang pangangailangan talaga sa araw-araw. So napipilitan siya talagang humanap ng escape. Yung A, availability. Available po sa kanya yung option na yun dahil yun na lang po kasi ang tanging magagawa niya. Dahil kahit ano pong gawin niya, sa napakahirap pong kalagayan ng marami nating kababayan, makikita naman po natin ang pinanggagalingan talaga nitong mga droga ay talaga pong yung mahihirap na segment ng ating population. Yung C, Mr. President, ano na po yun?
Curiosity.
Akala po niya, curiosity. Baka iniisip niya, tingnan ko nga, baka dito maka-escape nga ako. Ito na lang siguro ang mabuti kong gawin. Hanggang sang huli, Mr. President, ano na po yung huli?
Emptiness.
Emptiness.
Walang pagmamahal, walang Panginoon Diyos.
Hindi lamang po yun. Empty talaga. Literal pong empty. Walang pagkain, walang gamot, walang pambayad sa napakaraming mga bagay. Talaga pong malululong siya sa droga. Talaga pong hahanapin niya, Mr. President. Wala po siyang choice. Hahanapan po niya yung makakapagbigay sa kanya ng panandaliang siguro escape sa kanyang buhay. Hindi niya kayang harapin lahat. Tao lamang siya. Ito po ang pinanggagalingan ng problema ng droga. Ito lang pong nangyari sa atin ngayon. Very recently, Mr. President. Nung nilimas po ang ating kabangbayan, lalo pong nalugso ang economic condition ng ating bansa. Lalo pong tumaas ngayon ang bilihin. Maski kanino po kayo magtanong ngayon, litong-lito ang ating mamamayan. Kaya alam ko po, lalong dadami na naman ang droga. Nakakalungkot po, nakakatakot. Sana po ay unahin natin sana yung pinagmumulan ng problema ng droga. Ito po yung pangkalahatang kalagayang kabuhayan ng ating bansa. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President. Maraming salamat po sa inyong panahon.
Thank you. Just for the record, Mr. President, tayo naman po ang Kongreso at Senado, hindi po nagkukulang kung tutuusin. Lagi po nating hinaharap ito. At meron nga po tayo mga tinutulak na mga bagong batas na pwedeng sumagupa dito. Ang isa po na mga naipasa na natin na inaasahan ko that in the very near future, the Executive Department will finish this. This is Republic Act 11928. This is the Separate Facilities for Heinous Crimes Act. Ito po yung mag-i-establish tayo ng isang lugar na kung saan nakahiwalay yung mga high-level drug traffickers para po maiwasan na natin yung debate naman pagdating sa death penalty. Anyway, Mr. President, maraming salamat.
Senator Robin
Leader,
Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Nais ko naman pong magbigay ng konting pahayag sapagkat nabanggit po ng ating Ginoong Pangulo ang patungkol po sa pagtatayo ng mga pasilidad para po sa mga involved po sa droga. Nais ko lamang pong banggitin sa ating plenaryo nung panahon po na ako po ay nakulong sa Bilibid. Si Ginoong Pangulo po ang tumulong po sa amin makapagtayo ng therapeutic center sa loob. Kung natatandaan niyo po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Opo, tatandaan ko po at saka pinadagdagan ko po yung
Building po sa loob.
Yung pagkain po ninyo, pinataasan ko yung budget.
Opo. Yan po ang mga naging institusyon na po ngayon yan sa New Bilibid Prison, sa Bureau of Correction, yung pong Inmates Crusade Against Drugs. At ito po ay tinulungan po kami ni Ginoong Pangulo, Senator Vicente Soto III. Kaya isa pong malaking tulong po ito sa Bilibid sapagkat dito po ay naihiwalay po yung mga drug offenders doon po sa mga tinatawag po natin na mga kriminal. At ito po, nagkaroon po kami ng mga building doon. At ito po ngayon ay kinikilala na programa po sa Bucor. Meron lang po ako sana na mababanggit din po sana dito sa ngayon na dapat din po natin pong harapin may kinalaman din po ito. Sa ngayon po kasi, yung atin pong mga kulungan ay napakarami pong mga drug offenders po ngayon na nakakulong. At katunayan po, halos ang buong population po, sabihin na natin, 80% ay drug offenders po. Sana magkaroon din po tayo ng mga panukala na makapaghihiwalay po sa atin, doon po sa mga usapin na kung sino po yung mga heavy user, doon naman po sa mga light users pa lang, na wag po sana silang mapasama doon sa mga tinatawag po natin na mga pusakal na kriminal. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po uli sa inyong lahat.
Salamat po. Salamat po, Mr. President. I wish to thank the distinguished gentleman from Camarines, from Bicol, and Nueva Ecija, Senator Robin Padilla. Yes, tama po yun. Mga 70 to 75% po ng nakakulong ay drug-related actually, yung kanilang mga kaso. At yung sinasabi po nila na suggestion na baka maihiwalay, pwede po natin yan i-incorporate doon sa tinatayo po na separate facilities for heinous criminals. Naihiwalay po sila. So mangyayari po, aalisin natin dapat sa Muntinlupa, yung New Bilibid Prison sa Muntinlupa. At ililipat natin ang mga taga Luzon sa Luzon, ang mga taga Visayas sa Visayas, at ang mga taga Mindanao sa Mindanao. Bakit po naisipan yan at nilagay ko puro sa batas yan? Sapagkat ang nabalitaan ko, at ito po ay mapapatunayan ng ating kaibigan at ating kasamang senador, Mr. President, na kapag ang isang PDL or person deprived of liberty ay hindi na dinadalaw ng pamilya, yan po ay based on my research at saka pag-aaral po yan. Marami pong inabot ang sa akin ng Department of Justice during that time. Sa matter of fact, binigay ko po kay Senator Frank Rilon yan nung araw when he was Secretary of Justice, na kapag hindi na dinadalaw ng pamilya, doon nag-uumpisang magloko yung PDL. Doon na nakakasama ng mga gang, na barkada, na siguro po ay mapapatunayan ito ni Senator Padilla.
Totoo po yan. Opo, ako po'y sumasang-ayon sa atin pong Ginoong Pangulo. Sa katunayan po, nung 19th Congress, ako doon po ay nagsulong ng regionalization. Totoo po yun. Kapag ang tawag po namin dyan, mga tawid dagat. Kapag ang tawid dagat po ay hindi na nadalaw, eto na po, nagkakaroon na po ng mental health issues na po talaga. At nauuwi na po ito minsan sa pagiging buryong. Yun po ang tawag namin doon. Pag naburyong yan, ay pwede na po yan talaga minsan mag-amok o manaksak. Opo. Yan po yung mga talaga mga tunay na problema. At napakaganda pong marinig na ito po ay pag-uusapan po uli. At inshallah ay magkaroon po ng batas na maging regional na po talaga ang Bilibid.
Sa ngayon po, ito'y nandoon na. It's a matter of the Executive Department executing it now. Kasi nga, tama yung binanggit nila. At sumasang-ayon siya sa sinabi namin, sumasang-ayon din po ako sa kwento niya. Sapagkat kapag ikaw ay, ang isang PDL ay taga Sultan Kudarat, paano kang bidalawin sa Muntinlupa? Baka once a year hindi ka madalaw noon. Lalo na kung ito'y kapos. Kapos. At karamihan sa ating mga kababayan doon ay kapos. So pag hindi na dinadalaw, yun ang nag-umpisa. So dali natin sila sa Mindanao, yung mga taga Mindanao. Taga Visayas sa Visayas. At yung mga taga Luzon sa Luzon. Ang mangyayari po niyan, at sineperate po natin yung mga loko, yung mga heinous criminals, sineperate natin yan. Yung Muntinlupa po, 324 hectares, tama ba? 324 hectares po yun. Ang laki pong ginhawa sa gobyerno to. Kung ito'y gagawin na lang natin, imbis na NBP, gagawin natin itong yung university belt. University belt. Marami pong magtatayo ng mga eskwela at university ron. At magiging growth corridor po yan papunta sa south ng Luzon at ng Metro Manila. Malaking bagay po yun at I hope maumpisa na po yan. Ang alam ko, when Secretary Remulla was DOJ Secretary, they started already the groundbreaking for that. So sana po matuloy. At salamat sa inyong pagsuporta at pagtagulod, pagtangkilik, Your Honor.
Apo, maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Meron lang po akong idadagdag, konti lang po doon. Nakapag-usapan din po namin ito. Totoo po yun ni Secretary Remulla nung siya po ang DOJ. Ni-request ko lang po sa kanya no, na sana i-maintain lang yung maximum prison na parang Alcatraz po, na wag namang gibain kasi historical, very historical po yung maximum prison, na kung ito po ay matutuloy, magkakaroon po ng paglilipat. Sana lang po, i-maintain lang yon sapagkat napaka-historical po nung main building po ng Bilibid. Maraming
Museum.
salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Pwede pong maging museum. Maliit na party lang naman po yan, so pwede po yung suggestion niya. Thank you. And again, 11928 was co-authored by Senator Mig Subiri, Mr. President, just for the record.
Senator Joel Villanueva is recognized.
Mr. President, just very short, Mr. President, manifestation, and if I may just raise one question to our dear Senate President. First of all, at the onset, may I just put into the records of this August Chamber my sincerest thanks and gratitude and support to the privileged speech given by our Senate President. Just one thing that I'd like to raise that touched my heart is when the Senate President made mention not only about all this, the pressure, peer pressure, escape, availability, curiosity, and the last one was mentioned, yung emptiness, Mr. President. And emptiness stems from the fact that a person has no course or hope anymore to live and fight another day. And that's why dun po sila pumupunta. And binanggit po ng ating Ginoong Pangulo na napakahalaga ng pananampalataya, napakahalaga ng relationship sa Diyos, napakahalaga ng mayroon kang pinupuntahan at nakakausap through prayers, Mr. President. And I remember there was a time in the history of this country when we actually focus on moral recovery program wherein we involve religious groups, religious sectors. I have talked to so many people, Mr. President, and I don't know if our Senate President would agree with this representation. I have talked to so many people, and experts, etc., and our Senate President's been fighting this menace in our society for almost 40 years now. And they have been saying, Mr. President, maraming programa ang pumapalpak kahit na merong lugar, kahit mayroong building, kahit mayroong programa, etc. Pero kung wala po yung moral aspect, yung pong paggabay, pastor man ito, pari man ito, imam man ito, Mr. President, pag bigay ng importansya sa relasyon niya, sa kanyang Diyos, sa kanyang tagapagligtas, then it is impossible really to redeem and to rehabilitate a person who is drug dependent, Mr. President. So I just wanted to ask our dear Senate President about this and how we can really mas mapaigting pa, mas mapalalim pa yung pagkakaroon o pag-i-involve ng tinatawag na moral recovery program, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. Tama po yun. Iyan po isa sa mga pinakamahalaga na parte sa atin sa buong buhay, hindi lang tungkol sa droga, kundi sa kabuuan natin. Yung moral recovery ng ating bansa, we will have to focus on faith. Whatever religion we believe in, we must focus on faith. As a matter of fact, yun po sa sinasabi ko sa rehabilitation program, ang isa ho sa pinakamatala, aside from therapeutic community, yung pong faith-based. Yung faith-based rehabilitation program, ang isa sa pinaka-effective na programa, Mr. President. And the moral recovery is immediate. Iba talaga kapag ang kausap mo ay ang Panginoon Diyos at talagang ibinubukas mo ang sarili mo at isinusuko mo sa Kanya. Malaking bagay po ang nangyayari at marahil we can think of a way of how we can incorporate it in the authority that I am proposing, the Presidential Drug Enforcement Authority. Because aside from the four major concerns that I mentioned, there is this new technique of alternative development. And perhaps after alternative development that we can use, we can also infuse moral recovery. Mas madali hong mako-convert yung mga drug dependent kung magkakaroon ng moral recovery program and faith-based as much as possible. Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will fully support that. And thank you, Mr. President, for that very clear answer, Mr. President, especially based on experience by our Senate President. Importante ho na talagang maisapuso, masaisip, at talagang maintindihan mabuti ng isang mamamayan na ang kanyang buhay ay mahalaga at merong patutunguhan ang kanyang buhay kung meron siyang pagkilala at pananampalataya sa pinananaligan niya na Diyos. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo. Thank you, Mr. President.
Salamat din po. Salamat po, Mr. President. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our dear Senate President, for his privileged speech. Mr. President, I move that we refer to the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs the privileged speech of the distinguished Senate President together with all the manifestations and interpellations done after.
Mr. President,
Senate President,
may
is
we
recognized.
please ask the Majority Leader to include also the Committee on Justice?
Oh, yes, Mr. President, a secondary committee, Committee on Justice.
So referred. Is there an objection? Hearing none, so referred.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we take up proposed Senate Resolution number 297. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? Hearing none. Asa na yun?
297, Mr. President. Resolution 297.
Senate Resolution 1794.
Or maybe before that, Mr. President, I move to withdraw that motion and proceed with the reference of business, Mr. President, so that we can put that clearly on the record. Mr. President, I move for the reference of business
yeah.
and withdraw the previous motion.
Reference muna. Doon ako nakatingin eh.
Bills on first reading. Senate Bill number 1794, anak establishing a 25-bed capacity hospital in Barangay Kasigang Municipality of Santo Tomas, Province of Davao del Norte, to be known as the Santo Tomas Municipal Hospital in operating Funds 4 by Senator Marcos.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
1795, anak establishing a post-traumatic stress disorder awareness and education program by Senator Villar M.
Referred to the Committee on Health and Demography.
1796, anak establishing the Philippine National Public Park System and operating Funds 4 by Senator Villar M.
Referred to the Committees on Urban Planning, Housing and Resettlement, Tourism, Ways and Means, and Finance.
1797, anak proclaiming the first Friday of March as Firefighters Recognition Day by Senator Villar M.
To the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs.
1798, anak integrating a comprehensive study of Philippine history during World War II into the higher education curriculum by Senator Villar M.
Referred to the Committee on Higher, Technical, and Vocational Education.
1799, anak ensuring gender-responsive and inclusive protocols and programming to address the gender-differentiated needs of women during emergencies, including public health concerns, pandemics, and natural and man-made disasters by Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, Health and Demography, and Finance.
1800, anak establishing a green public recruitment program for all branches of government by Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking, and Finance.
1801, anak mandating the formulation and implementation of programs on sleep disorder awareness by Senator Villar M.
To the Committee on Health and Demography.
1802, anak promoting the use of baybayin as a tool for cultural development of the Philippines, providing for its promotion, protection, preservation, and conservation by Senator Villar M.
Referred to the Committee on Culture and Arts.
1803, anak preserving the genius sports and games of the Philippines by Senator Villar M.
Referred to the Committees on Culture and the Arts and Sports.
1804, and act institutionalizing the appointment of economic and investment promotion officers in local government units, amending for the purpose of Public Act Number 7160 of the Local Government Code of 1991 by Senator Villar M.
to the Committee on Local Government,
1805, an act establishing a national high school in Barangay San Roque, Municipality of San Isidro, Province of Davao Oriental, to be known as San Roque National High School in appropriating funds thereof by Senator Go.
to the Committee on Rules,
1806, an act enabling banks to expand service delivery channels through cash agents and providing guidelines therefore by Senator Marcos.
to the Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies,
1807, an act further promoting renewable energy, amending therefore Republic Act Number 9513, otherwise known as the Renewable Energy Act of 2008, Republic Act Number 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code 1991, and for other purposes by Senator Marcos.
to the Committees on Energy, Local Government, and Ways and Means,
1808, an act amending Republic Act Number 11697, otherwise known as the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act, and for other purposes by Senator Marcos.
to the Committees on Energy, Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, and Ways and Means,
1809, an act providing for the creation, organization, and operation of digital banks, amending for this purpose Republic Act Number 8791, otherwise known as General Banking Law of 2000.
to the Committee on Banks,
Senator Marcos.
Financial Institutions, and Currencies,
Additional reference.
Additional reference of business. Bills in first reading. 1810, an act strengthening the Commission on Elections by increasing the manpower complement in field offices, providing office spaces separate, independent from local government units, and appropriating funds therefore, amending for the purpose Batas Pampasa bilang 881, otherwise known as the Omnibus Election Code of the Philippines, as amended by Senator Aquino.
to the Committees on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation, Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation and Finance,
1811, an act converting the extension campus of the Cebu Technological University in the municipality of San Remillo, province of Cebu, into a regular campus and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Aquino.
Committee on Rules,
1812, an act converting the extension campus of the Technological University in the municipality of Tabuelan, province of Cebu, into a regular campus and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Aquino.
to the Committee on Rules,
1813, an act converting the extension campus of Technological University in the municipality of Tabogon, province of Cebu, into a regular campus and operating funds therefore by Senator Aquino.
to the Committee on Rules,
1814, an act converting the extension campus of the Cebu Technological University, Dan Bantayan, in the municipality of Bantayan, Bantayan Island, province of Cebu, into independent regular campus and operating funds therefore by Senator Aquino.
to the Committee on Rules,
1815, an act creating the Department of Education, Northern Iloilo Division, and operating funds therefore by Senator Aquino.
to the Committees on Basic Education, Civil Service, and Government Organization, and Professional Regulation and Finance,
1816, an act providing for institutional, structural, and systemic defense reforms in further purposes by Senator Ligarda.
referred to the Committees on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation, and Finance,
1817, an act implementing a lifeline rate for internet services, amending for this purpose Section 17 of Public Act Number 7925, otherwise known as the Public Telecommunications Policy Act of the Philippines by Senator Marcos.
to the Committees on Public Services and Finance,
1820, an act establishing a comprehensive integrated and sustainable accreditation program for overseas Filipino workers by Senator Villanueva.
to the Committees on Migrant Workers and Finance,
1821, an act promoting the adoption of digital payments for financial transactions with the government and all merchants by Senator Villanueva.
to the Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies,
1824, an act defining and penalizing racketeering influence and corrupt organizations, providing civil remedies and forfeiture of illegally acquired assets and for other purposes by Senator Marcos.
to the Committee on Justice and Human Rights,
1825, an act exempting the importation of medical supplies and equipment from customs duty and value-added tax by Senator Marcos.
to the Committees on Ways and Means, and Health and Demography,
1826, an act strengthening the government procurement, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 12009, otherwise known as the New Government Procurement Act by Senator Marcoleta.
to the Committee on Finance,
1827, an act amending Section 15, 21, and 25 of Republic Act Number 6770, otherwise known as the Ombudsman Act of 1989, and providing funds therefore by Senator Marcoleta.
to the Committee on Justice and Human Rights,
1828, an act further strengthening the Anti-Money Laundering Act, amending with the purpose Republic Number 9160, otherwise known as the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001, as amended by Senator Marcoleta.
to the Committees on Banks, Financial Institutions and Currencies, and Justice and Human Rights,
1829, an act to further combat financial fraud perpetrated against public funds, allowing private individuals to institute actions for false claims on behalf of the government by Senator Marcoleta.
to the Committee on Justice and Human Rights,
1830, an act mandating accessibility, inclusivity, and all tourism sites for persons with disability and senior citizens, operating funds for and for the purposes by Senator Tulfo E.
to the Committees on Tourism, Social Justice and Welfare, and Rural Development and Finance,
1831, an act to establish a Philippine Coast Guard Academy, allocating funds for and for the purposes by Senator Marcos.
to the Committees on Public Services, National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification and Reconciliation, and Finance,
1832, an act promoting entrepreneurship by initializing a financing program for micro and small enterprises through the Pondo sa Pagbabago at Pag-asenso program and providing funds for by Senator Tulfo E.
to the Committees on Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship, Economic Affairs, and Finance,
Resolutions. Resolution number 291. Resolution directing the appropriate Senate committee to inquire in need of legislation on the status of production and publication of the Philippine map reflecting to the West Philippine Sea pursuant to Receipt Order number 29, within in view of ensuring the timely production, publication, deposit, and international notification thereof by Senator Marcoleta.
to the Committees on Foreign Relations and Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change,
297, resolution honoring the life and legacy of Honorable Jose de Veneza Jr., expressing the deepest sympathies and condolences of the Senate upon the passing of the former Speaker of the House of Representatives and venerable statement by Senator Gatchalian.
to the Committee on Rules, Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 297. Mr. President.
Senate. Yes.
Proposed
Senate Resolution 297. Consideration is in order.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. May we ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
The Secretary is directed to read the title of the measure.
Resolution honoring the life and legacy of Honorable Jose de Veneza Jr., expressing deepest sympathies and condolences of the Senate upon the passing of the former Speaker of the House of Representatives and venerable statesman.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the distinguished sponsor, principal sponsor of the measure, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
To sponsor the measure, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, today we mourn the passing of a titan of Philippine politics, the longest-serving Speaker of the House of Representatives in the post-war era, Jose de Veneza Jr. It is my privilege to sponsor a resolution honoring the life of this great man and expressing the deepest condolences of the Senate on the occasion of his passing. When I entered politics in 2001 as the representative of the 1st District of Valenzuela City, JDV was my first speaker. In many ways, he was a pivotal part of my formative years in public service. He was a leader, a voice of reason, and a figure of stability and continuity that was synonymous with our democratic institutions. Indeed, many would seek to emulate him as one of our nation's great parliamentarians and peacemakers, and an instrumental figure in organizations such as the International Conference of Asian Political Parties and the Asian Parliamentary Assembly. One of JDV's greatest gifts was the capacity to bring people together from different political camps and backgrounds to work for the common good. He was the architect of the Rainbow Coalition and the Sunshine Coalition, which were critical to ensuring the stability of government during turbulent times. During the term of President Fidel Ramos, JDV constantly held vital continuing dialogues with the leadership of the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF. The efforts of the Peace Panel culminated in the 1996 peace agreement between the government and the MNLF. This is just one example of the flair for diplomacy and consensus building that made JDV a worthy champion for peace and progress. Ultimately, JDV's legacy is one of quiet service, of reliability, of building bridges between diverse peoples. It is a legacy that brought a sense of calm and stability to government, opening the door for lasting change, reform, and progress to make its way from the halls of Congress to the households of our countrymen. It is a legacy that influences my work in public service to this day. In closing, I would like to express my deepest condolences to Congresswoman Gina De Venecia and to the rest of the De Venecia family. You will always be in our prayers, and we thank you for the privilege of knowing Speaker JDV. We will always strive to honor this example. I know that his life will inspire future generations of civil servants to follow in his footsteps and work tirelessly for a more peaceful, harmonious nation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gatchalian. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. Lauren. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm next to co-sponsor the measure. May I just use my speech yesterday and my manifestation as the co-sponsorship of this particular resolution, Mr. President? For the
Is
record.
there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, next to give a co-sponsorship speech is no other than our distinguished colleague, Senator Lauren Legarda.
Senator Lauren Legarda is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parang kailan lang tayo ay nagbigay ng pahayag sa Senate resolution, maybe a year ago, when he was here. He was very much alive then. I'm glad we did so. I think it was Senate President Chis Escudero at the time. Yes, so I'm glad that we did that. I rise today, Mr. President, with deep sorrow to honor the life and legacy of former Speaker Jose De Venecia Jr., our beloved Manong Joe. I extend my heartfelt condolences to Congresswoman Gina, Manay Gina to many, and the entire De Venecia family, including our colleague in Congress, former Congressman Christopher Toff De Venecia, who shared with the nation for so many decades. JDV was a statesman of rare vision. He was a journalist, a diplomat, a legislator, a global advocate for peace. He was the longest-serving Speaker of the House of Representatives, and under his leadership, the House became a forum for bold ideas and national renewal. He believed in dialogue, in coalition building. Anong tawag nun? Rainbow coalition. Similar to what Majority Leader Migs Zubiri espouses, and in the power of consensus. His initiatives for peace, from Mindanao to the Middle East, reflected his conviction that the Philippines must always be a bridge for understanding. But beyond the titles and the accomplishments, I remember the personal kindness of Manong Joe. In 1997 and early 1998, yan, ang bata pa natin noon. When I first became a senator, still learning to navigate the world of politics, he believed in me. Hindi po ako siguro tatayo bilang senador dito ng pang-apat na termino kung hindi po niya ako pinili kasama ni Manay Gina at kasama si then President Ramos na masama sa kanilang lakas slate. In fact, nagtanggal pa po sila ng mga kabinete nila sa lakas para ma-accommodate po sa 12-man slate ang babaeng batang journalist at the time. He encouraged me to take the risk and quietly stood by me. I would not be here today if he had not given me that trust. What I will remember most are his simple words of encouragement, his genuine guidance, the way he made you feel that your work and your voice mattered. He was not one to impose, rather, he guided with gentle persuasion. I remember during the campaign, he would talk about globalization in 1998, when the crowds were rowdy and clapping, and he would talk about his vision for the Philippines and for the world as early as then, and perhaps the people were uncomfortable with such discourse in a campaign rally. But I recall conversations with him on the plane when we would take the flight together. As a neophyte in politics, he would handpick me to join him in some meetings and in rallies where the other more veteran re-electionist senators could not make it. Kasama ko po nun si Bobby Barbers, kasama ko po nun si Tito Gingona, kasama ko po nun si Rene Cayetano. Kasama ko nun si Nani Perez, kasama ko rin nun, was it Nina Rasul? Yes. No, not Jovi Salonga, Mr. Senator Villanueva. So, I would be reminded that politics is not about power for its own sake, but about service and the responsibility to uplift lives. He believed that leadership was measured not by titles, but by the ability to inspire others to act with courage and conviction. His legacy will live on in the leaders he inspired, the policies he championed, the countless lives touched by his vision of the Philippines that is strong, respected, and at peace. And even beyond his terms as speaker, he would attend global fora and speak about peace, sustainable development, and he enjoyed how, as a young senator, I tried to espouse climate resilience when nobody else quite understood what it meant in 1998. He would call me, Iha, alika, paliwanag mo sa akin ito. Naintindihan ka ba? Ikaw ba ay nagsasalita tungkol dito? And we would talk about it. Whether it would be in Asian and ASEAN forum, or even Middle East meetings, or even in the European Union and in the IPU. Thank you, Manong, for the trust, the guidance, the friendship that I will forever honor. Your example will continue to light our path, and your memory will remain a source of strength for all who believe in the power of service and the promise of our nation. And on a more personal note, Gina, who is a dear Manay, like a sister to me, asked me to say goodbye to Manong Joe in his last hours. I videotaped a short message on my phone and sent it to Manay Gina on the morning when he passed away. Sabi ni Gina, pagkatapos daw nakita yung video ko, Joe, nag-goodbye si Loren. 10 minutes after, he passed away. And Gina, even this morning, told you he loved you so much and believed so much in you. And that to me is really tugs at the heart and is much appreciated. For such a great man, a global Filipino, who was sometimes misunderstood and way ahead of his time in the 80s and the 90s. He also was the first, maybe, OFW who opened the doors for overseas Filipinos as well. There's so much that can be said about a great mind and a great man, and often quite misunderstood. Pero tuwan-tuwa po ako nung pinag-uusapan niya ang mga issues na bumabagabag sa mundo ngayon way back in the 1998 campaign. Rest in peace, Manong Joe. We love you.
Thank you, Senator Ligarda. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before I recognize your distinguished colleague, Senator Joel Villanueva, I take assurance that he's now with his daughter, Casey De Venecia, who he was very fond of. And when she passed away at a very young age, when their house burned down, he never stopped thinking about her. So I'm happy to take note that at least, hopefully, they're together in heaven, Mr. President, enjoying their life together that they missed out because of the early death of his daughter. Mr. President, I'd like to recognize our distinguished colleague, no other than Senator Joel Villanueva, to also co-sponsor the measure.
Senator Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, our dear Majority Leader. Mr. President, dear colleagues, we join all the members of this August Chamber in celebrating the life and legacy of the esteemed Jose de Venecia Jr., former Speaker of the House of Representatives, a pillar of Philippine lawmaking, and a statesman whose imprint on our republic will endure for generations. We extend our deepest condolences to Manay, Tita Gina, Congresswoman Gina, Congressman Toff, and the entire family of Tito Joe. Let me first pay tribute to the great JDV for his many accomplishments. He served as House Speaker from 1992 to 1998, and again 2001 to 2008. The very first, Mr. President, to hold the speakership 5 times in separate terms. Among the landmark measures he authored are the Build, Operate, Transfer Law, widely known as the JDV Law, the Basis Conversion and Development Act, the New Central Bank Act, the Low Cost Housing Law, the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipino Act of 1995. His advocacy, Mr. President, for migrant workers would later inspire this representation in crafting the Department of Migrant Workers Act. His legislative record alone would secure his place in history. But Speaker Joe de Venecia gave far more than laws. He gave leadership. Hence, I rise today, Mr. President, not only as a former member of the House of Reps, but as a grateful colleague who had the honor of working alongside him during his speakership from 2001 to 2008, a defining chapter in the life of our legislature and our country. Those years were not easy. Our nation faced political transition, economic uncertainty, and profound questions about governance. At Ginoong Pangulo, sa gitna po ng mga hamong ito, si Speaker Joe de Venecia stood as a steady and principled leader. Ipinakita po niya sa atin na ang tunay na pamumuno ay hindi po nasusukat sa kapangyarihan. Kung hindi po sa kakayahan niyang makinig, umunawa, at magbuklod. As Speaker, he understood that authority in a democracy is built not on command, but on consensus. He listened carefully, respected dissent, and believed deeply in the power of dialogue. Sa mahahabang caucus at mainit na mga debate sa plenaryo, tinitiyak ni JDB na mayroon pong puwang ang bawat tinig at pananaw. He was not merely fluent in the rules of the House, but deeply committed to their spirit. Under his leadership, the Chamber remained a true home of free debate and democratic process, an institution he strengthened and protected. Halos isang dekada rin po kaming nagkasama ni Speaker JDB sa mababang kapulungan. At kung matatandaan niyo po, ang grupo ng minorya noon ay nakapag-produce ng 9 na senador dito sa Senado. Nandiyan po sila Senators Alan Cayetano, Senator Chis Escudero, Senator Amy Marco, Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator TG Gingona, Senator Noynoy Aquino, Senator Cynthia Villar, Senator Sani Angara. Nasa minorya man po kami noon, Ginoong Pangulo, marami kaming natutunan kay Speaker JDV. Mula po sa malalaking usaping pambansa hanggang sa maliliit na bagay. Hindi lang po kami sa minorya ang nakarating dito sa Senado dahil na rin sa kanyang impluensya. Narito po ang ating Majority Leader, Senator Mig Subiri, Senator JV Ejercito, Senators Camille and Mark Villar, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Marami pong pinamana si Speaker JDV doon po sa Kamara de Representantes. Naalala ko, Ginoong Pangulo, noong tumakbo po siyang Pangulo against President Erap, nung natalo po siya bilang Pangulo, Nakakagulat kasi yung bahay niya dito po sa Makati, araw-araw punong-puno ng tao. May catering, may tanghalian, may hapunan. Pero nung natapos yung eleksyon, I remember going there with my dad. Tatatlo lang po kami, Ginoong Pangulo. Minsan sumasama po si Manay Gina, nagba-Bible study po kami. At sinabi po noon, at tandang-tanda ko ni dating Speaker Joe D.V., sabi niya, dahil po doon sa mga Bible studies, at sumasama po siya sa amin noon, nag-anniversary ang JIL sa Hong Kong, sa Taiwan, nakakasama ko siya, nakakatabi ko siya sa eroplano, marami po siyang kinukwento sa atin. At tandang-tanda ko po sinabi po niya, balang araw, at dahil dito sa mga ginagawa natin, na-realize ko na hindi pa tapos ang Diyos sa akin, at balang araw, makakabalik pa rin ako. At nangyari nga po, nakabalik po siya bilang Speaker of the House. Siya rin po, Ginoong Pangulo, ang may idea na dapat magkaroon ng party list representative sa House Committee on Rules. Kaya po dumating yung pagkakataon noong 2002, ako ay kauna-unahang naging part ng Committee on Rules ng House of Representatives. Idea din po niya na dapat ang party list group ay magkaroon din ng representasyon sa Commission on Appointments. At nangyari din po sa biyaya at habag ng Diyos, tayo po ay naging kauna-unahan ding miyembro ng Commission on Appointments representing the party list group. At simula po nun hanggang ngayon, lagi na pong may party list representative doon po sa Commission on Appointments. Beyond the gavel and the title, Speaker De Venecia, Mr. President, was a mentor. Hinikayat po niya ang mga nakababatang mambabatas noon. Lagi po niyang sinasabi ang importance ng pag-aaral, importante na makapagsalita ka mula sa iyong prinsipyo at laging tandaan na ang panunungkulan ay isang sagradong tiwala ng sambayanan. Marami po sa amin ang hinubog hindi lamang bilang mambabatas, kundi bilang tunay na lingkod bayan dahil sa kanyang halimbawa. Today, Mr. President, with heavy hearts, we join this august chamber united in remembrance and gratitude. We honor a life devoted to service, to country, to institution, and to democratic ideals. Ang kanya pong pamana ay mananatili sa mga batas na kanyang itinaguyod, sa kamara na kanyang pinatatag, at sa mga leader na kanyang hinubog. Thank you, Manong Joe, Tito Joe, Speaker Joe, for your leadership, for your wisdom, and for your lifelong devotion to the Republic. Hindi po kayo malilimutan ng sambayanang Pilipino. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
Majority Leader.
Very nice manifestation, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move also to recognize a distinguished colleague, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, to give his sponsorship of the measure.
Senator Jingo Estrada is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I rise today to co-sponsor proposed Senate Resolution number 297, honoring the life and legacy of former House Speaker Jose De Venecia Jr. and expressing deepest sympathies of this august chamber on the passing of a towering figure in Philippine politics, the husband of Pangasinan 4th District Congresswoman Manay Gina De Venecia. JDV shaped the face of politics and internal security. In the years of his illustrious career, he believed in the power of dialogue, having played a pivotal role in securing a successful peace agreement with the former secessionist Moro National Liberation Front and in negotiating both a ceasefire and a peace accord with the Armed Forces Movement Young Officers Union. As one of the longest-serving speakers of the House of Representatives, he dedicated his life in serving our nation for peace, prosperity, and respect, even to his political rivals. He faced formidable opponents, including my father, former President Joseph Estrada, during the 1998 presidential elections. Yet, what truly reflects statesmanship is that despite political differences, we regard one another as true family friends. And that bond remains to this day. In fact, last year, both Speaker Joe and Manay Gina de Venecia visited my father at our residence in Green Hills, San Juan, and I was observing both of them talk in our dining table. Nakakalungkot dahil sabi ni Speaker de Venecia sa tatay ko, ikaw ba nakalabang ko noong 1998? Sabi ng tatay ko, di ba, tinalo ba kita o ikaw ang nanalo? Medyo nakakalungkot yung pagkikita ng dalawa, pag-uusap ng dalawa dahil both are already in their advanced age. Hindi katulad noong 1998 when they were really very bitter rivals. But after that incident, of course, after the election day, they became best of friends. Anyway, his friendship with the Estrada family continues to remind us that politics is indeed temporary. Beyond politics, he was a devoted husband, father, and grandfather. Tito Joe, thank you for your leadership, dedication, and your belief in the Filipino people. Muli, ang aming taus-pusong pakikiramay sa mga naulila ni Congressman Joe de Venecia. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Majority Leader.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President. Next to also sponsor the measure is no other than Senator Mark Villar, Mr. President.
Senator Mark Villar is recognized.
Mr. President, my dear colleagues and guests of the Senate, good afternoon to all of you. Today I rise with profound respect and deep gratitude as this chamber adopts Senate Resolution number 297, honoring the life and legacy of former House Speaker Jose de Venecia Jr., a statesman, a leader, and an inspiration for generations of public servants, including myself and many of those who sit in this chamber today. But for me, of course, I call him Tito Joe. As much as one's demise is an inevitable part of life that is filled with sadness, grief, and pain, it is also an opportunity for us to honor, commemorate, and celebrate one's life. Former Speaker Jose de Venecia is a prominent figurehead of Philippine politics, recognized as the longest-serving House Speaker, leading the lower chamber across different political landscapes and for almost 2 decades. He is a resolute leader whose steady hand harmonized varying and opposing voices towards genuine reform, peace, and unity. Mr. President, my father had the honor of working with JDV when they were both in Congress in 1992. My father recalled fond memories with the Speaker and the commitment he had in pushing for policies and initiatives that truly turned the lives of Filipinos for the better. And personally, marami po akong memories kay Tito Joe. Nung ako po ay estudyante at nag-a-apply po ako, gumawa po siya ng napakagandang recommendation para sa akin. At ako po ay malaking bagay po ito para sa akin dahil natanggap din ako sa college na in-applyin ko. At malaking bagay yung recommendation niya. This was I was 17 and I believe at the time Senator Camille was 10 years old. So marami na po kaming pinagsamahan ni Tito Joe at malaki pong utang na loob kay Tito Joe. Malaki pong effect niya sa buhay ko. JDV has left a legacy of legislative accomplishments that defined the socio-economic and political landscape we know today. He championed multi-sectoral legislation that uplifted the quality of life of many of our constituents. Former Speaker de Venecia was a leader who fought for genuine peace and unity. He was an instrumental figure in various international cooperation initiatives and interfaith dialogues. Tito Joe was also a peace envoy who braved the lines of conflict and fostered discord and that led to a final peace agreement in 1995, ensuring that all of us Filipinos lived in a country that is united. To the family of Speaker de Venecia, especially to his wife, Representative Gina de Venecia, Tita Gina, and the bereaved family, we extend our deepest sympathies. The Senate shares your sorrow in remembering a life well lived and a public service well delivered by the late Speaker. I also wish to pay respects to the people of Pangasinan, his beloved constituents, whose lives he championed with grit, determination, and integrity. I also wish that, Mr. President, as we adopt this resolution today, let us move forward in unison, carrying the legacy of people-centered service, just as Tito Joe had. May his memory be held as a paragon of service to each and every Filipino that we serve. Maraming salamat po. At muli, nakikiramay po ako sa naiwang pamilya at mga kaibigan ni Speaker Joe De Venecia, Tito Joe. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Next to also sponsor the measure, Senator Erwin Tulfo, Mr. President.
Senator Erwin Tulfo is recognized.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, yesterday, the nation lost a pillar of Philippine politics, statesman, a parliamentarian, and a builder of institutions, former Speaker Jose Joe De Venecia. A son of Pangasinan, Speaker De Venecia served the House of Representatives and was elected Speaker 5 times. An enduring testament to the trust of his peers, he championed landmark measures that helped shape our modern economy and governance. The Build, Operate, Transfer, or BOT law that laid the groundwork for public-private partnerships, laws on the conversion of military bases, and key reforms that strengthened our financial and institutional framework, such as the creation of the Central Bank of the Philippines. Beyond our shores, he carried the Philippines' voice for peace and dialogue. He founded the centrist Asia-Pacific Democrats International and the Asian Peace and Reconciliation Council. He was a peace envoy during the Ramos administration and a special envoy for intercultural dialogue under former President Duterte's term. Many may not know it that Speaker Joe began as a journalist. He studied journalism at the Ateneo de Manila University and served as an editor of the Gaidon. He later worked as Manila Bureau Chief and Philippine correspondent for the Pan-Asia Newspaper Alliance and wrote on Asian affairs even before martial law. In the late 1960s, he co-founded the Radio Philippines Network, better known as RPN 9, one of the pioneers of broadcast journalism in our country. As a journalist myself who later entered public service, I see Speaker De Venecia a familiar journey. The passage from telling the nation's stories to helping shape its direction, he understood the power of information, dialogue, and truth in building democracy. Behind the public record was a quiet life of service. He extended help to orphanages and homes for the elderly and was a steady source of support during calamities. His generosity reached not only Dagupan in Manila but communities across the Visayas and Mindanao region. Today, Mr. President, we honor a life spent in service, of laws passed, bridges built between peoples, and help given without cameras. On behalf of the Senate, I extend our deepest sympathies to his family and loved ones. May his legacy remind us that public office is, above all, duty to build, to reconcile, and to serve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Senator Bongo would like to also be recognized.
Senator Christopher Bongo is recognized.
Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I rise with deep respect to co-sponsor the Senate resolution honoring the life and legacy of former House Speaker Jose De Venecia. I extend my heartfelt sympathy and deepest condolences to his family, loved ones, and friends, lalo na po kay Congresswoman Manay Gina De Venecia, sa aking kaibigan na si Congressman Toff De Venecia at sa mga anak nito at buong pamilya ng De Venecia. Kaibigan ko po yung mga pamangkin niya way back high school. Former Speaker De Venecia devoted decades of his life to public service, leaving an indelible mark on our nation's political and legislative history. He was a statesman whose name has become known for public service, sound leadership, and unwavering dedication to the Filipino people. Wala pa po ako sa politika pero ang naalala ko parati pag speaker ay si Speaker De Venecia ang parati nating naririnig. From his early days in public service to his tenure as Speaker of the House, he consistently championed the interests and welfare of the Filipino people. Under his leadership, the House of Representatives was not merely a legislative body, but a beacon of hope and an avenue for progressive change. He served as a special envoy for intercultural dialogue of the DFA during the administration of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Former House Speaker De Venecia served as the founding chairman of the International Conference of Asian Political Parties. During his career, he became instrumental in securing a peace agreement with the MNLF, Moro National Liberation Front in southern Philippines. Mr. President, former Speaker De Venecia was a tireless peacemaker, and his work resulted to various peace agreements and amnesty programs. Aside from being a 5-term Speaker at the House of Representatives, former Speaker De Venecia has been for years a trailblazer for the Filipino people, Asia, and the world. His contributions extended far beyond the confines of our legislative halls. On the international stage, he was a respected diplomat and a visionary leader who understood the importance of building bridges between nations. Parati niya pong binabanggit noon, nung nagkakausap kami, ay ito pong bilang founding chairman po ng International Conference of Asian Political Parties. As we honor the life and legacy of former Speaker De Venecia, let us always remember and be guided by his legacy, a legacy of hope, perseverance, and an unyielding commitment to the welfare of all Filipinos. Thank you, Mr. President, at paalam po, Speaker Jose De Venecia.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, may you also recognize Senator Risa Ontiveros to sponsor
Senator
the motion.
Risa Ontiveros, recognized.
Pwede yun, no?
Salamat po, Mr. President. Una po, taus-pusong pakikiramay kina Representative Manay Gina De Venecia at sa ating kapwa Arts and Culture Advocate Toff De Venecia. Kasama na po ang mga panalangin at mahigpit na yakap sa kanilang pamilya. Mr. President, we honor the legacy of former Speaker Jose De Venecia Jr., a visionary who understood that good governance is inseparable from the well-being of our people. Through our shared work in the Philippine Legislators Committee on Population and Development, PLCPD, we champion the future where every Filipino family is empowered through reproductive health rights, gender equality, and the protection of children. Speaker JDV's commitment to institutional reform reminds us that true leadership lies in crafting policies that uplift the most vulnerable and ensure a sustainable, dignified life for all. It was during his term, one of his terms as Speaker, that the Cheaper Medicines Act was shepherded through the House, a piece of legislation that remains one of the most vital shields for our people against the high costs of falling ill. He understood that to truly empower the Filipino, we must first break the monopolies that keep life-saving drugs a luxury. Mr. President, Speaker JDV's Rainbow Coalition was more than just a political maneuver. It was a testament to his belief that unity is the primary engine of progress. whether from the same side of or from across the political aisle, one could not help but admire the sheer force of will he applied to the service of the Filipino people. Mr. President, minsan ko na pong ikunento ito dito sa Senado na nung tumatakbo po ako para sa re-election noong 2022, muli po akong bumisita kina Speaker JDV sa kanilang bahay sa Dagupan. Dahil kahit alam ni Speaker na hindi po ako sumusugal ng pera, bagamat sumusugal sa ibang mga bagay, sabi po niya sa akin noon, Risa, huwag ka nang magkampanya, sigurado ka nang mariri-elect. Sinagot ko sila noon, Speaker, hindi po ako naniniwala dyan. Wala pong sigurado, kaya puspusan po akong nangangampanya. Ang sagot naman po niya sa akin noon ay, o sige, ganito na lang. Pag ikaw natalo, babayaran kita ng 10,000 pesos. Pero kapag ikaw ay nare-elect, ikaw magbabayad sa akin ng 10,000 pesos. Pagkatapos ko pong mari-elect, paulit-ulit kong sinusubukang bayaran yung utang ko sa kanya. Sabi niya, iya, wag na. Ngayon, wala na po akong pagkakataong bayaran yung aking utang sa kanya. Pero, sa mga natitira ko pang taon at dekada ng buhay, babayaran ko po ang utang na loob ko kay Speaker JDV in ways that are worth much more than mere money. Today, Mr. President, through our Senate resolution, we bid farewell to a statesman who taught us that in the grand waltz of democracy, we must always keep dancing and moving forward together. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator De Veros. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, we'd like to also put on record that we'd like to, these following distinguished colleagues of ours, Senator Padilla, Senator Camille Villar, Senator Pia Cayetano, and Senator Kiko Pangilinan would like to insert to the record their co-sponsorship speeches of the measure, Mr. President, for the record.
Therefore, we so inserted all the enumerated members of the Senate.
Mr. President, before we act on the matter, I'd like to also move that all members be made co-author and co-sponsor of this measure, Mr. President.
The motion is approved. All members are made co-authors.
Mr. President, just my final say on the matter. A lot of us gave our private personal insights. Senator Risa has hers. I have had several. But I would like to just say for the record, while working with this distinguished statesman, and that's why probably he was a statesman, he had no mean bone in his body. As a matter of fact, pag may sumisigaw na sa plenaryo, naalala ko yun, iniinsulto na siya, pagbaba niya sa plenaryo, yayakapin niya. Hindi niya, how do you say, hindi papansinin or isasnabin niya. Diretso siya dun sa taong yan, yayakapin niya at itatanong, ano bang may tutulo, ano bang problema, how can I fix the problem? Ganun siya. And I think, to a certain extent, he was one of the last few statesmen that we had left. Of course, we had Senator Juan Ponce Enrile, who passed away recently. We've had Senator Ed Angara, the likes of Senator Ed Angara, Senator Joco Arroyo, and now we have lost Senator Joe De Venecia to the annals of history with his death, Mr. President. But on a personal note, working with him was a pleasure because if there was a problem that we took to him to solve, he would call all of us, party leaders, and discuss it. And when some of the party leaders would say, gibain natin, pahirapan natin, wag natin bigyan ng pansin o yung mga batas o yung mga bills niya, wag natin ipapasa. He would always object and say, wag naman. He'd always say that, wag naman. Kausapin natin siya. Let's do what we can to help appease the situation. Ganun siya, hindi siya vindictive na tao. And that's what I will miss about him. And I think that type of leadership was what got him elected 5 terms, historic 5 terms in Congress, Mr. President, because he was very well loved, well liked, and I mentioned this yesterday, Mr. President. He allowed all of us to shine. That is why I'm here today. That's why several of our colleagues are here today, because he would never tell us to stop or shut up in the plenary. He will never send a party whip and say, if you do not stop, mawawala yung allowance mo, mawawala yung benefits mo, mawawala yung stature mo, mawawala yung position mo. Hindi siya ganong klaseng tao, Mr. President. And I can recall one time that the presiding officer was Raul Gonzalez. Best friend yata ni Sen Ping yung si Congressman Raul Gonzalez kasi naging Secretary of Justice yun nung hinahabol si Senator Ping. Oh, siya ikaw best friend niya. Tama. I remember clearly, Mr. President, at that time, the vice chairman of the Committee on Appropriations was then from Iloilo, Congressman. He passed away already as well. What was the name? No, Iloilo City. Guimaras. No. Iloilo. He was former TESDA. Alam ni Senator Joel. Si Huco. Yes, Congressman si Huco, Mr. President. Kini-question niya yung budget. Siya po ay vice chairman ng APRO, which is, you're not allowed to do that in the House. Mortal sin yun kasi you're supposed to help the chairman as vice chairman. But he was objecting to the budget. I don't know for what reason. I can clearly recall Senator De Venecia, as Congressman De Venecia or Speaker De Venecia coming to me and saying, kausapin mo si Congressman Bubuy. Sen Migs, ako, si Barbers, kinausap namin, ayaw talaga mag-budge. Instead of getting angry, he sent us one more time to talk to him, and he even approached him, but he did not budge si Congressman Siuko. That was the only time that Congressman, Presiding Officer, Deputy Speaker Raul Gonzalez, on the podium declared Congressman Siuko was out of order and had him bodily removed because he would not allow the vote. Yeah, I remember that. He would not allow the vote to take place in the approval of the budget. So he was bodily removed. But he felt bad. Sumama loob ni Congressman Speaker Joe De Venecia because he did not want to have to do that action. For him, it was a drastic action, too drastic. Kaya natuwa naman ako. As I said, he had no mean bone in his body. And after that, I remember that when it was the next day, dinapitan niya si Buboy Siuko na imbis na magalit kay Congressman Buboy Siuko, sinabihan lang niya, "You're such a very naughty guy talaga. Naughty." Ganun lang, naughty. I remember he used to say that. So naughty. So, those were the days, Mr. President. A house that was like that. That we could speak freely and could debate freely on that type of atmosphere. So, Mr. President, with no other members who wish to sponsor the measure, no amendments, I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 297, honoring the life of the distinguished 5-time Senate President or 5-time Speaker, Mr. President, sorry. Let me repeat that. Honoring the life and legacy of a 5-time Speaker of the House of Representatives, no other than Jose Joe De Venecia Jr. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair is none. PS Resolution 297 is hereby adopted and approved.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Mr. President, with your permission, could we give this? He will be having a eulogy in the House of Representatives on Monday. I'm sure you're invited, Mr. President, and several senators. Maybe we can take the resolution and give it to the family. I'll be there, Mr. President. If you
Yes, I'm
wish,
sure the Majority Leader will be a very
I could represent you,
very
Mr.
good
President.
representative of the Senate to deliver the resolution.
And we'll, of course, turn it over to the family. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we'd like to consider Senate Bill number 1508 under Committee Report number 12. Mr. President, with the permission of the body, this is the act authorizing the Department of Health to set and approve the bed capacity and service capability of all DOH hospitals, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 1508 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Risa Ontiveros, and to interpolate, we have our distinguished colleague, Senator Win Gatchalian.
Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is recognized to interpolate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. And will the gentle lady, Her Honor, accept a few questions on the proposed measure?
Definitely, Mr. President.
First and foremost, on the onset, let me commend Her Honor for coming up with a bill that will lay out the long-term plan for our hospital capacities. And I say this because during the budget deliberations, I had the experience of analyzing the healthcare system of the country, including the different mechanisms to help our constituents avail of hospitalization, medical assistance, and other health requirements. And I remember when we were talking about the mechanisms, most especially the medical assistance or MAIP in particular, when we were analyzing MAIP and also looking at the logic why we still need MAIP, one of the reasons and one of the justifications that were given to me at that time by the DOH and also from our other colleagues is a lot of our constituents experience overcrowding in public hospitals. They experience problems in securing beds, securing services. May mga nagsabi sa akin, this is also first-hand information, that in some of our hospitals, when you need surgery, this is public hospitals, sometimes it takes months, 3 months to get an appointment from doctors or even get a bed space because of the problem of overcrowding in DOH hospitals. And because of that overcrowding, it also spills over the local government hospitals. So pati yung mga local government hospitals natin also experience overcrowding. And because of this problem in overcrowding, a lot of our constituents are forced to take up the pay ward in the public hospitals. And some of them, kung kailangan na talaga magpa-opera or kailangan na magpakita ng specialista, they would transfer to private hospitals. And because of that transfer to private hospitals, many of our constituents would go to politicians, to go to people who have access to the guarantee letters, because the guarantee letters become the parang pangpuno o pangbayad doon sa private hospitals and also to pay wards. And when we were looking at this problem, one of the issues that we need to focus on is the capacity issues. Because if we have the capacity in our government hospitals, then our constituents will not be forced to go to pay wards or to private hospitals, and therefore we will have less requirement for medical assistance or the MAIP. So that's why my view on the healthcare system, we have to look at it from a larger standpoint, from a macro standpoint, because it's a system. Kasama na ho dyan yung hospital beds, kasama na dyan yung payment mechanisms, kasama na dyan yung services that we can offer our constituents. So it's a system. Once one of the facets will be problematic, the entire system will also be problematic. It will actually have a chain reaction. So, having said that,
If I may,
Yes,
Mr.
go
President,
ahead.
good
Yep.
gentleman, just comment to the initial comments of the good gentleman from Valenzuela. Maraming salamat po dun sa approach din na systemic at saka macro. Yun din yung how this bill is seeking to approach the question of bed capacity and service capacity in our hospitals. There is actually already a framework, currently the Philippine Health Facility Development Plan, at sinusubukan din itong bill na ito i-situate yung particular concern of bed capacity within that PHFDP or Philippine Health Facility Development Plan. Secondly, Mr. President, tamang-tama po yung pinoint out ng good gentleman from Valenzuela na overcrowded talaga. Just talking about the DOH hospitals, grabe po yung bed occupancy rates. They are all over 100%. Dun pa lang sa taong 2025, our level 1 DOH hospitals were at 173% capacity.
Wow, taas,
Opo, mataas talaga, halos doble na. Level 2 DOH hospitals, 100.58% capacity. So over din. And level 3 hospitals din ng DOH, 106% capacity. So lahat nung tatlong levels na yon ng health facilities over. And last but not the least, at this point, Mr. President, dun sa opening comments ng good gentleman from Valenzuela, bed capacity in particular is impacted by this overcrowding sa mga DOH hospitals. Dahil sa ngayon, ang total bed capacity ng DOH hospitals sa Pilipinas ay at 31,642. That is already what we actually need at this point in time, which for 2026 current year, DOH hospital beds planned supply is 35,331. So, dun pa lang sa current year, we are behind by about 4,000 beds, Mr. President. At kung hindi po natin aaksyonan ito through a law on bed capacity na contextualized dun sa Philippine Health Facility Development Plan, by year 2040, kapag hindi natugunan at naaksyonan, yung ating bed capacity gap will rise from the current 114,251 to 188,943 beds, Mr. President. So dagdag kulang na 70,000 beds, Mr. President, by year 2040.
Yeah, actually, yun yung mga tatanong ko, yung mga basic data, Mr. President. For now, parang nakikita ko the same story to with classrooms, Mr. President.
Actually po, Mr.
Over the years,
President.
because hindi nakakapaggawa ang DPWH, kasi DepEd in budget, but DPWH yung nagko-construct, nagpatong-patong na yung kulang natin. And currently, we are backlogged with classrooms, about 140,000 classrooms. So, and that will translate to almost 200 billion in terms of, 400 billion in terms of addressing the backlog. So backlog pa lang, 400 billion na yung kailangan natin. Parang nakikita ko the same story with hospitals. No?
So kumbaga, Mr. President, double whammy. Doon pa lang sa two basic
Yes,
social
tama.
protection and development indicators ng ating sambayanan. And as for education, in the hundreds of billions, we also have the numbers po ng kakailanganin natin to start to close the gap just in terms of hospital beds.
Actually,
Mr.
that's my first
President.
question, Her
Okay.
Honor, is ano ba ang backlog natin ngayon in terms of hospital beds as we speak? No?
As we speak, Mr. President, ang current backlog is 17,000 po ang unmet as of 2026. As of June 2025, Mr. President, a little more than half a year ago.
And then you mentioned 17,000 ang backlog natin.
Backlog, opo.
And then for 2026, ilan po ang ipapatayo para ma-address po itong backlog?
In 2026,
in terms of hospital beds?
Ito po yung targets natin, 2026, 35,331 target beds, which would be an increase from the 5,015 capacity or target beds? Okay, increase for 2026. At yung target beds na yon, increase of 5,015 would cost us, eto na po Mr. President, ang price tag, 32.1 billion pesos, Mr. President.
So, if my notes are correct, ang backlog natin as of 2025 is 17,000.
Opo.
And then we will be constructing 35,000 for 2026. Tama po ba? So, in
That's
that
right,
word,
Mr.
in other words, cocover na natin yung 17,000 if ever ma-construct natin this 2026?
We would still have a backlog, Mr. President, of about 12,000 kasi ang mai-increase lang as of this year would be 5,015 beds,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Oh, great. So meron pa tayong backlog na 12,000
Opo, Mr. President.
ang kukulangin.
Yes.
And that backlog of 12,000, how much do we need to fulfill that backlog?
How much would we need?
More or less lang, more or
12,000.
less.
Yung pong sinabing figure din po kanina, ito po, for 2026 to 2028, Congress would need to appropriate a total of 102.81 billion pesos to meet target bed increase, Mr. President.
Okay. So kailangan ho natin 102 billion.
Opo,
Ang
over
laki
the
rin.
next 2 years.
Yeah, over the next year, just to catch up. This is only to catch up,
Yes,
no?
Just to catch up, Mr. President.
And then we're not even talking about yung, of course, if our population is growing, obviously the need for hospital beds is also growing. So hindi pa natin pinag-uusapan yung growth. This is only to catch up with our backlog.
Based on current population, Mr. President.
Mr. President, for honor, how will this bill address the backlog? I understand that it will be now there's the health facility development plan, which is parang roadmap to, no, on
Opo,
how
Mr.
to
President.
address the backlog and necessity. But how do we paano po yung process of addressing the backlog under this proposed measure?
Ang magiging process po niya, Mr. President, is that Senate Bill 1508 seeks to authorize the DOH to set, adjust, and approve the bed capacities and corresponding service capability of all DOH hospitals administratively without requiring separate legislation. So this effectively would remove legislative bottlenecks that currently delay the expansion and upgrades, thereby improving the health system's efficiency and responsiveness, Mr. President.
So in other words, Mr. President, if I understand it correctly, the DOH will now be authorized to look at the capacity issues. Is that correct? And then
That's correct, Mr. President.
and then propose under a plan
Yes.
a roadmap on how to finance all of these capacity requirements.
Yes, Mr. President. The bill would authorize DOH to approve and adjust bed capacities and corresponding service capabilities of DOH hospitals through administrative issuances. It would be authorized to convert, upgrade, and modernize DOH hospitals' existing equipment and facilities to ensure responsiveness to the health needs of the population consistent with their authorized bed capacity and service capabilities. Doon po pumapasok yung Philippine Health Facility Development Plan. Kasi the bill would mandate the development and maintenance of the PHFDP as a strategic blueprint for modernizing hospital infrastructure and services nationwide. The PHFDP enables access to capital outlay investment and ensure alignment of hospital expansions with national health facility planning and investment priorities. So ito naman po kumokonekta sa funding na binanggit ng good gentleman from Valenzuela dahil the bill would ensure funding integration still through the General Appropriations Act. The bill would direct adjustments in bed capacity and service capability to be incorporated into the DOH budget planning and inclusion in the GAA. So it would align funding needs with hospital modernization and capacity goals under the PHFDP. Kumbaga, yung isang pwedeng pagtingin natin, Mr. President po, ay the bill would twin yung PHFDP at yung GAA process po natin taon-taon, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I understand that at the local level, all DOH hospitals have a management committee. Sa Valenzuela, when I visit the local DOH hospitals, I understand the way they are managed. Meron silang executive committee or management committee, and then it's run by a chief of hospital. And I understand that they also have a planning division at the local level. And that's where they usually plan their requirements in terms of hospitals and capacity. Unfortunately, hindi nata-translate yun to budget. A lot of them are just pure plans, no? Because nangyayari when they request DOH for expansion or for purchase of equipment or additional services to be offered, most often than not, yung budget limited eh. So because limited yung budget, hindi nabibigyan lahat, no? In other words. So itong proposed measure natin that will empower DOH to plan, how will this work hand in hand with the local hospital planning activities, no? And how will this measure after the planning activities will work hand in hand with the budgeting activities of the DOH? Typically, the funding requirements come from the health enhancement
Facilities Enhancement Program.
Facilities Enhancement Program Fund, no? HFEP, no? So how will it work hand in hand with HFEP?
Mr. President, unfortunately sa ngayon, hindi po kino-contemplate ng bill na mag-apply pati sa mga LGU hospitals or private hospitals for that matter. So sa ngayon, mag-apply lang po siya sa DOH hospitals. Samantalang yung mga private hospitals at LGU managed hospitals, mananatili po silang governed by existing laws and licensing rules.
Right.
Mr. President.
For yung mga, that's actually another question that, because we're looking at the system, how can this bill also look at the hospital capacities of a locality to include LGU hospitals and to include private hospitals, but most especially LGU hospitals, because nakita ko dito, they will in the bill, no? They will analyze the situation at the local level. Titignan nila yung mga requirement doon. They will also look at what is the appropriate capacity of the DOH hospital in that locality. Pero sa tingin ko, kailangan din tingnan nila yung buong system ng locality, no? To take into consideration, let's say, the capacity of the LGU hospital, no? Is that a possibility that in this bill to look at the system requirement of a locality? Ako ang inaano ko lang yung sa Valenzuela, because like in our city, we're synergizing local hospital tsaka yung DOH hospital namin, sinisynergize para they're not competing, rather they're complementing. For example, in the LGU, we handle the primary care or yung level 1. Tapos yung DOH hospital namin handles level 2 and level 3. So we don't, in a way, we complement each other, no? So they don't invest as much in primary care. Kami naman, we invest in primary care. So is that type of arrangement can be, is that an idea that can be incorporated in this bill, that type of arrangement, so that we can look at local system-wide situations?
Mukhang, Mr. President, may mga leksyon na matututunan po tayo in terms of the overall implementation of universal healthcare mula sa lungsod ng Valenzuela. It's not yet, as I mentioned earlier, contemplated in this bill, pero tignan natin kung pwede natin i-consider either maging bahagi nitong bill na ito or a companion measure. Dahil buong policy framework naman ang tinatayo natin bukod sa oversight on the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Law. In relation to that po, Mr. President, I think the important point na binibring up ng good gentleman from Valenzuela ay pwede rin po nating i-take up dun sa Congressional Oversight Committee on the UHC law. Particularly yung hina-highlight nila na dapat complementation between DOH health facilities and LGU plus private health facilities sa kabuuang service delivery network, pati ng bawat lungsod. Sa ngayon po kasi, under the Universal Healthcare Law, there's some kind of integration at least up to the provincial level. Kaya may eyes on the ground ang DOH, for example, na of our 82 provinces, Mr. President, 36 ay walang DOH hospitals. So, and sigurado kung walang DOH hospital sa 36 provinces, kailangan pa tayong deeper dive. So, ilan ang kulang na bed capacity doon? And then we could also look, are there LGU hospitals in those provinces? May complementarity ba with other health facilities in the absence of a DOH provincial hospital? Or lalo na, kung in those 36 provinces na walang DOH hospitals, kung kulang din yung mga LGU hospitals. So, there are different approaches through which we can look at ano yung gaps sa overall service delivery network for health sa Pilipinas. And I'm willing to explore that, Mr. President, in terms of yung LGU hospitals.
Nakita ko lang dito sa Section 4, authority to approve. And then in page 2, line 1, it says here, taking into consideration the hospital's development plan, catchment population. So when you say catchment population, you're talking about yung local scenario or your local demographics. And then meron din dito healthcare provider network. So I was, ang chain of thought ko dito, all of these are related to the available capacities at the local level. No? And when I say available capacity, that includes local government hospitals and also private hospitals. But more so local government because gobyerno rin sila. A lot of our local governments are also practicing zero balance billing. Ngayon, padami na ng padami. And that's why it has to I'm looking at a government hospital system integration. No? So nakikita ko na there's a potential to look at the local government system, local hospital system at mapasok natin dito so that holistic yung pagtitingin ng capacities.
Mr. President, ngayon pa lang aligned na yung line of questioning or line of thought ng good gentleman from Valenzuela dun sa pinag-uusapan natin kaninang Philippine Health Facility Development Plan. Dahil dun po sa plano nila na National Development Plan for all types of health facilities to achieve UHC. Kaya pwede nga nating tignan yon dun sa Congressional Oversight Committee. Diyan sa PHFDP, under public sector, meron talaga siyang category of LGU owned, including primary care facilities at saka LGU hospitals. Na dun sa kabuang PHFDP, pasok siya sa Provincial Health Facility Development Plan at Local Investment Plan for Health, Mr. President.
Okay. So ano talaga, under this PHFDP,
Opo.
The local government capacities will also be taken into consideration.
Yes, Mr. President.
But of course, in terms of investment and funding, iba naman, I would assume, iba yung approach because local government hospitals will have local governments funding the capacities, and obviously national funding will go to the DOH hospitals. No? Yeah, but in terms of system,
Yes.
na pag-aaralan yung system. Yeah.
Opo, Mr. President. Ang kagandahan siguro ng pagkakaroon ng executive ng plano tulad ng PHFDP, tapos tayo naman dito sa legislature na tinatayo natin progressively yung health enhancing na policy framework, ay dahil UHC system ay isa sa mga pillars nun, yung health financing, health insurance, we can really examine how habang nag-evolve yung implementation natin ng universal healthcare, kung paano din efficiently at effectively na mobilize yung iba't ibang resources at paano pwedeng mag-complement itong mga resources na ito sa isa't isa to achieve yung health goals natin.
So is it
Mr.
correct to
President.
say, Her Honor, that with this bill under Section 5, yung Philippine Health Facilities Development Plan, we will now have a concrete roadmap, including budgetary requirements, take into consideration the system requirements. Magkakaroon tayo ng roadmap in terms of funding.
Yes, Mr. President, kasama na po yun.
Yeah. And then, meron na bang preliminary assessment ang DOH in terms of with our present allocation in HFEP? Kasi ang HFEP natin ngayon is about 22 billion. About 22 billion. How long will it take in order to at least fulfill the backlog? Meron ba silang, have they ran simulations to that effect?
Hindi lang, 2040. Wala pa. Okay. Wala pa. Honestly, Mr. President, wala pa
Wala
po.
pa.
Hanggang marating natin yung zero backlog. Meron lang pong ilang mga targets na sineset mula ngayong taon hanggang 2028. Ibig sabihin, target beds accounting for increases of so many beds per year at yung magiging cost niya. Pero wala pa yung dun sa yung finish line na gano'n na talagang ma-close absolutely yung gap, Mr. President.
Meron lang ako share sa, let me show this, itong table 2. Tinignan namin yung mga capacities. And I support this measure because nakita ko yung, like you mentioned earlier, Her Honor, yung mga capacities natin. Itong occupancy rates per region. Can we show that?
Ayun.
Yeah, itong for 2024, tama, like you said, balik. Marami sa ating mga regions surpassing 100% capacity na, no? And this is a worrisome situation because even though zero balance billing tayo, even though we can use PhilHealth in our government hospitals, but if our constituents will go to a hospital and they experience ganito, 100%, ibig sabihin punong-puno. In iba, more than 100%, meaning nasa hallway na yung mga hospital beds or iba, nasa labas pa. So, hindi magiging maayos yung healthcare system natin and the experience of our constituents. But we also looked at several hospitals, ito hospital specific na because this is average. In some of these specific hospitals, meron tayong mga hospitals 300%. For example, in San Lorenzo Luis General Hospital, 374%. Siargao Island Medical Center, 312%. Johnny Villanueva General Hospital, this is in Bukawi. I believe si Senator Joel ang nag-push para mapatayo itong hospital, 242%, and so on. Itong Margo sa Tubig Regional Hospital, 205%. So ibig sabihin, talagang twice the capacity na in experience or thrice
Opo, Mr.
experience na ating constituents. And like I said, even though we have zero balance billing, we have PhilHealth, but if there are no beds, then there's no service. No? That's why I see the importance of this bill and the importance of putting a roadmap and a plan in order to finance the requirements of our hospitals. So with that, Mr. President, again, I commend the gentle lady from Iloilo, Her Honor, for putting this innovative bill to the floor so that we can discuss this. And I look forward in enacting this bill so that it will be complementary to our discussions when we talk about the budget once again towards the end of the year. Importante may roadmap para hindi lang palakasan or hindi lang nagiging kung sino ang may access sa funding, kundi meron tayong roadmap and it's based on development plans, catchment population, healthcare provider networks, available of human resources. So meron siyang criteria on how to lay down the plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and to the good gentleman from Valenzuela. Just to a few of the last points he made, dun sa pinakitang mga regions, they account for 43 hospitals with over 100% capacity. Opo. So kung wala po tayong Philippine Health Facility Development Plan, kung hindi natin i-contextualize yung ganitong bill sa PH FDP, we would need 43 bills para lang ibaba yung occupancy rate from over 100% to below 100% through increasing bed capacity by legislation. Idagdag pa po natin yung 36 hospitals sa mga probinsya na 36 provinces na walang DOH hospital. Kung kailangan nating punuin yung gap na yon through legislation, we would need to act on a total of 79 bills. And usually ang legislation po natin sa ganitong importanteng pangangailangan would take on the average from 21 months up to 3 years per hospital. So if instead i-maximize po natin yung PH FDP and then yung taong-taong pagpasa natin ng GAA to vet yung ipopropose administratively ng DOH. At nire-require din ng panukalang batas na to ang DOH to report annually to Congress. Then, mas ma-facilitate po natin at mas mapapabilis in a rational way yung paghahabol natin dun sa gap sa bed capacity, Mr. President.
So instead of the legislative route, it will be an administrative route.
It would be an administrative route, Mr. President, on the operational matters. Pero ganun pa rin yung policy setting, tayo pa rin sa Kongreso, yung pagpondo or hindi and to what degree, dadaan pa rin taon-taon sa GAA. And then, kailangan pa rin nilang ang DOH kailangan pa rin mag-report back annually sa Kongreso. So may ganong complementation sa mandates at saka sa duties, Mr. President.
Right. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Risa, for accepting a few of our clarification questions and also suggestions on the possibility of including LGUs in the planning process. No?
At the proper time, let's do that, Mr. President, sa period of amendment.
Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat, Mr. President.
George the Leader.
Hindi ko pa nasulat eh.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study it further, we move to suspend consideration of the measure. So, Mr. President.
Session the consideration of the measure suspended.
Sige pa, sorry. Ay, hindi pa? Okay. Kasi wala. Next week na lang. Wala nang ibang tao dito. Tayo naman. Okay. Si Ma'am Lauren, Mr. President. Yes. Deliver na. Wala tayong... Or else we'll adjourn. Is it important? If it's important, we can do it.
It's on the economy. Yes, it was pending since last week.
You have the floor. I'll give you the floor. Sure. Mr. President, can I ask just for a minute suspension to allow the
Session suspended.
sponsor to get Mr. President, I move that we recognize our distinguished colleague, Senator Lauren Legarda, to avail of the privilege hour, Mr. President.
Senator Lonnie Legarda is recognized.
Mr. President, I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. The Development Budget Coordination Committee, DBCC, recently released a sober recalibration of our economic outlook. The figures speak for themselves, and they speak loudly. Fourth quarter GDP growth has slowed to a mere 3%. Let that number sink in, 3%. For many Filipinos, a drop from 6% to 3% means fewer jobs, slower business growth, tighter household budgets, and fewer chances for families to move ahead. It has pulled our full-year growth for 2025 down to 4.4%, falling short of our targets and forcing a downward revision of our revenue projections through 2028. This dominoes as the recent data indicates that our debt-to-GDP ratio now is 63.2%, the highest level in 20 years. We have breached the internationally accepted manageable threshold of 60%. This means that a larger portion of our government revenues must be diverted to service debt interest, leaving significantly less funding for healthcare, education, infrastructure, and social services. What makes this deeply concerning is that even amid delayed projects, compromised quality, and persistent waste and misuse of public funds, we continue to borrow. Sa halip na ayusin ang mga prioridad at tapalan ang mga taga sa paggastos, patuloy pa rin tayong nagdaragdag sa ating utang. Ang epekto, mas kaunting silid-aralan at kama sa ospital, mga kalsadang inuulit-ulit ayusin at patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo na lalong nagpapahirap sa buhay ng mga pamilyang Pilipino. That 3% growth, coupled with a high debt-to-GDP ratio, tells us that the engine is stalling. It's that flashing yellow light on our national dashboard telling us that the old assumptions behind our growth can no longer be taken for granted. For decades, we have relied on a concrete-driven growth engine, a linear, extractive model that prioritizes large-scale infrastructure as a primary input to induce economic growth. This is evidenced by the huge 530 billion peso budget of the Department of Public Works and Highways, which even with a budget cut this year, is still 18 times larger than DNR's meager 27 billion peso budget. When multi-trillion peso programs are accompanied by corruption and blinded oversight, the results become catastrophic. We see it in the delayed projects, the compromised quality of our roads, the diminished investor confidence that restricts our fiscal space. When we persist along the same path with the same institutional vulnerabilities, we are courting repetition of the very failures that brought us to this 3% reality. Mr. President, the question before us is simple. Do we allow these mistakes to happen again? I believe the answer for this chamber and for the Filipino people must be a decisive no. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. While the traditional model falters, a sophisticated alternative has been waiting in the wings for decades. We do not need to be afraid to embrace it. Through our collective work in this House, we have built a legislative fortress, starting with laws that align sustainable development with economic growth, the Ecological Solid Waste Management, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Climate Change Act, People Survival Fund, many more. We often hear that environmental protection is a luxury for developing nations. I tell you today, environmental and climate responsive governance is a fiscal imperative. The full realization of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act should have been able to save us a lot of losses due to unmanaged waste. According to the DNR, the Philippines loses an estimated 45 billion to 51 billion pesos because high-value recyclable plastics are discarded in landfills or leaked into the environment instead of being recycled. Consider flood control, long dominated by hard infrastructure. Under these existing laws, planning shall be integrated with ecosystem-based approaches that restore rivers, wetlands, and mangroves while reducing long-term maintenance costs and exposure to corruption-prone procurement. This helps create a regenerative economy where resources are renewed instead of depleted. Even fiscal planning stands to benefit. Most recently, we enacted the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting System, PENCAS. This recognizes the economic value of our forests, our reefs, water. It ensures we no longer undervalue the ecosystems that bring and protect our lives, most especially our farmers and fisherfolk, who are working closest with nature. Partnered with climate adaptation measures, not only economic assets, but also the lives of people are further protected. By integrating climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction into the core of our national economic policy, we move beyond treating environmental action as optional and instead recognize it as central to sound governance and long-term stability. By transitioning from a reactive post-disaster recovery model to a proactive resilience framework, the government can effectively protect the country's gross domestic product from the cyclical erosion caused by natural calamities. And this is the very reason why we champion the People's Survival Fund, the nation's climate adaptation fund that supports the most vulnerable segments of our nation and drives them towards resilience. But resilience and sustainability are not built on infrastructure and ecosystems alone. They are equally built on people. The same logic that tells us to climate-proof our bridges and coastlines must also compel us to climate-proof our classrooms, communities, and livelihoods. When disasters strike or global markets shift, it is the quality of our human capital that determines whether families can recover and move forward. When our people and enterprises are better protected from these shocks, our country's risk profile improves and investors take notice. Capital is increasingly selective, flowing towards economies that demonstrate coherence between policy, governance, and sustainability. Investors look for signals that growth strategies are aligned with global transitions, not locked into legacy systems that magnify risk. The Philippines is positioned to meet this demand if we continue investing in our human capital. The recent wake-up call from EDCOM 2 report emphasizes that economic planning and education reform must move in tandem. Unless we invest in human growth, our progress will remain uneven and fragile. Education is intrinsically linked to labor and the development of a strong, competitive workforce. This is why we have been instrumental in passing the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education and the UNIFAS Act to ensure that the public stays in public service by making college accessible to all. And to bridge the immediate learning gaps, we passed ARAL, Program Act, specifically designed to arrest this learning poverty before it hardens into a lifelong advantage or disadvantage. We are creating a system where a skilled worker can upskill and reskill, ensuring that no Filipino is left behind by the breakneck speed of global change. This investment in human capital is the prerequisite for the Philippine Innovation Act and the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act. These laws represent a strategic shift in our economic policy, moving the Philippines away from a reliance on traditional low productivity sectors towards a high value, knowledge based economy. By institutionalizing support for so called intangible assets such as ideas, talent, and technology, we create a framework where growth is driven by productivity and ingenuity, not just by consumption and labor. Circling back to green and sustainable transition, it is not merely an environmental elective. It is a robust engine for employment. The International Labor Organization estimates that achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement could create a net gain of 18 to 24 million jobs by year 2030. The Philippine Green Jobs Act serves as our landmark legislation to capture this growth. I don't see it being implemented though. By offering fiscal incentives and tax deductions to enterprises that generate green jobs or employment that restores and preserves our environment, we strategically future-proof the Filipino workforce. Through green startups empowered by the Magna Carta for Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, the Barangay Livelihood and Skills Training Act, we position innovation as a practical tool for reform. We move ideas from research to deployment, generating jobs that are not just work, but are actual contributions to our national resilience. That 3% growth figure should not be read solely as a retreat from ambition. It must be understood as a trigger to recalibrate. We must choose. Do we double down on old school expansion that scars our environment and leaves our growth anemic? Or do we fully activate the greener, more resilient blueprint that we have already spent decades codifying into law? We already know the direction that we must take, Mr. President. Nariyan na po ang mga batas at mga alituntunin upang maituwid ang landas ng ating bansa. What is now being asked of us is the political will and collective courage to implement them, and to implement them correctly this time around. Let us be bold and ambitious once more. Let us build a climate and environment responsive economy that keeps our farms productive, that protects our seas, that secures our cities against the growing threats of disaster and climate instability. Let us strengthen a human capital agenda anchored on quality education, aggressive upskilling and reskilling, and a robust social protection system so that Filipino families can stand resilience against disasters, economic disruptions, and global market shocks. Let us pursue an innovation-driven livelihood strategy that transforms Filipino ingenuity and creativity into decent jobs, into competitive enterprises, and sustainable opportunities across every region of our country. This is ultimately a choice between a fragile economy that appears strong on paper but fractures at the first sign of crisis, and a resilient economy that invests deliberately in nature, in Filipino talent, in livelihoods that are capable not only of surviving but of thriving. Economic growth, environmental stewardship, and human capital development are not competing priorities. They form a stronger, more coherent, and more future-ready development strategy. Let us maximize the tools that already exist within our laws, our institutions, and most importantly, within our people, to prove that Philippine growth can be credible, accountable, inclusive, and prepared for the challenges of our time. Maraming salamat. Isang lunti ang Pilipinas sa ating lahat.
Majority Leader.
Sustainable.
I think economic affairs, this is the 3% recalibration. Whoever, it's not a matter of personal, whoever, but bagay economic affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President.
SDGs, di ba? Tama?
Yes, Mr. President, we'd like to refer the speech of the lady senator to the Committee on Economic Affairs as the primary committee, and the secondary committee will be the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Chair hears none. So referred.
No member on the Foreign Affairs? Wala pa? Foreign Relations? Yes, we were awaiting the nominee of the Good Minority Floor Leader for the extra additional member for the Committee on Foreign Relations, Mr. President. But for the record, Mr. President, I believe that the committee can already start hearing. They could have committee hearings, Mr. President. We start hearing already as soon as possible.
Yes.
And then we can follow the next,
Yes.
or the designation of the minority member in the committee. It's already, there are members of the minority in the committee. Can be in a later date, Mr. President.
Yes, based on our rules, the committee has been organized with the
Yes.
previous chairman. Now, the change of chairmanship does not necessarily remove the members. So
Yes.
therefore, it is the same. It has been organized, and a quorum could probably be could maybe done by merely 2 senators in any hearing.
Yes, Mr.
Therefore, the acting chair or the new chairman may call a hearing on the committee itself.
Yes, I believe the chairperson was just worried because he has a lot of treaties that he would like to already tackle in the
Yes.
committee. And I reminded him earlier, and I'd like to put this on the floor with the permission of the body, that it is already organized. The committee has
Yes.
been organized. We just
Technically,
changed the
yeah.
leadership, yes. So he
Yeah,
can have
therefore.
hearings, Mr. President.
With or without a complete number of members, still the committee may function.
Yes, Mr. President. For the record, we put that.
For the record, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
With that, I move that we adjourn session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, February 18, 2026. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none. Senator Legarda?
You can work without prejudice to those who want to work in the committees on a Monday or Tuesday.
Oh yes, they can work with the committees. It's merely because of a holiday.
Yes.
Because of a holiday on Tuesday.
Before I do that, I would like to withdraw my motion, Mr. President. I just move to approve the reading of the journal and approval of the minutes of the previous.
You're dispensing with the reading of the journal and moving to
dispensing.
approval?
And its approval, yes, Mr. President.
Yes. Any objection?
44th.
Hearing none. The reading of the journals dispensed with, and it is approved.
Yes, and people will be wondering why we're adjourning till Wednesdays, because we'll be working until Thursday. So instead of Monday session, and there's no work on Tuesday, we'll come in on Wednesday and just suspend for Thursday, Mr. President.
All right. All right.
Therefore,
So-
I move, Mr. President, that we adjourn on session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, February 18, 2026.
Any objection? Hearing none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, February 18, 2026.
Advance Happy Valentine's, Mr. President.